And I said, how soon can you come over?
When I first met my dad at 10, I remember pulling up in the car and he was like smiling like ear to ear.
My wife was elated. My other daughter was excited.
My dad took my sister Carola and I and Chelsea to go do like a family photo shoot thing. And I just remember feeling really happy because we were all together.
God, it was such a blessing.
It was actually a very good visit. We met at a park, so they were able to play on the toys and feed the geese.
I knew he was somehow family in one way or another, but it's like I didn't know him. It didn't really feel like a father-daughter thing because I didn't have that sort of connection with him.
I think I was 4. They got to come stay for a little bit. We used to play Polly Pockets together. He made me feel very secure about every issue I ever had growing up, wondering where he was. He got a tattoo on his back of my birthday, and I was informed by my mom and my stepdad that that tattoo got removed, and it hadn't. The visits with my dad ended kind of abruptly.
My ex said, you know, with what they take out of your checks for child support, I know that you struggle. And I would like to help with that. So I have an idea.
The last time that I remember seeing my dad, he was signing papers.
Ashlyn's crying, I'm crying, and I've got my kid's stepdad telling me, don't worry, I'll make sure she never takes your children away from you again.
By that point, Robert had been their dad for a few years. It just seemed like the next step.
I knew something big was gonna happen.
I've got her sitting there telling me, it's not gonna change anything. You're still their daddy, you're still their daddy. And the minute the papers were signed and the car doors were shut and everybody drove off, that was the last time I saw him.
The purpose of me meeting my father when I was 10 wasn't really about what I wanted from it or anything like that. It was just to get the adoption to go through.
I signed my rights. I'm ashamed, I'm embarrassed, I hate myself every day for it.
It sometimes felt as if my parents wanted me to choose sides. Like, they'd be like, what do you think?
They basically left it up to us whether we wanted to see him or not.
To pick a parent at 5, I probably wouldn't know who to pick at all.
Where his knees are.
Oh, yeah.
Go wave.
I found out that Brian was adopted by Karen, I believe, through an email. Ooh, okay. I was angry and heartbroken.
Is that when you adopt somebody, everything about the person disappears and it all starts over?
I think she was like much more like making a bigger deal than I was. She was really excited and felt like she was like pretty nervous, or maybe a little nervous to ask me.
So on it says certificate of birth, like I gave birth to you on this day. That's how this is written. Like it wipes everything else out before that, and now this is your legal document. So if anybody searched your birth, this is what they would see. They would see that I am now on your birth certificate as if I gave birth to you.
To me, Karen was mom, and it was important to her.
It's like that never happened, and this did.
Yeah, it's an interesting way to make
look
things
at
happen,
it.
yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I really didn't even think about Caroline at the time.
This is a card I sent to my daughter that I took a picture of so she would know that I sent it. And I did that with many cards that I sent them. This was a photo that was taken when she was little. Oh, God. All right. The adoption paperwork for Katie. I received an email from Karen saying that Katie wanted to be adopted also. By that point, she wasn't talking to me anymore, really. She didn't want anything to do with me. It just says who we are and my consent to the adoption.
How do you feel when you read that?
Not good. My daughter testified on the stand and said that she didn't want to see me. And it was in open court. I watched the whole thing. I was sitting right across from her looking at her while it was happening.
As soon as society and the legal system starts to ask a child, who should you choose to live with? Who would you like to live with? Then right away, they are asking a child to make a choice about who's a better parent. And that means one parent gets to be a parent and the other gets to be, at best, a visitor, and at worst, completely erased.
Like I would just say, it's just easier to not talk to her, and it was just such an easy decision. And in reality, there's no way that a decision like that could have been easy. So in turn, that's how I started building my walls. They're like screw you walls, like no one's getting in here. As a kid, we just don't want the stress of having to figure all this out.
I think the parents a lot of times aren't even conscious of the conflict they're creating for the child or the way they're manipulating them. One of the concerns when you interview a child is they come into a stranger's office in an uncomfortable setting. They've been brought here by one or the other parent. The other one's sitting out there. They feel incredibly conflicted. And so I don't know that we get accurate information from children when they come in.
I just want to see my mom. Sophie, do you want to go see your daddy? Can you tell me why? Because I don't.
What I remember about being in court was having to lie to the judge.
I had one case that sticks in my mind where the child wrote me and told me that all of the things she had complained about in detail had all been a lie.
My stepdad was going to be my real dad now. I remember telling Mom something along the lines of, I don't feel this way about my stepdad. I don't want my stepdad to be my dad. And she told me that basically that it was too late to say that, and it was out of my hands at that point. I was scared, to be honest, so I lied. And I said, yeah, I'm okay with this. I'm comfortable with this. This is what I want. And I felt a lot of guilt for that for a long time. Like, it was my fault that I felt that way because I should just rewire my brain and think the way they think, which was that I shouldn't have a relationship with him. I started smoking when I was 12, cutting myself regularly. I don't recall any kind of follow-up or checkup. I was never talked to by a social worker or a psychologist on anything about it. I had a boyfriend I had a talk with him one day about my situation with my father.
She just felt like she couldn't really talk about her father, Dizzy, around her mother and her stepfather. And I just gave her somebody in her corner to fight for her decision on whether or not she wanted to pursue it. The worst thing that could happen is, you never talk to him again, but the best case scenario is so much brighter than that.
I contacted Dad. I was on the phone with my dad for the first time since I was 10, and it was like the most crazy feeling. Then I found out that my mom and my stepdad started listening to our phone calls. I got into a very vicious argument, and I ended up getting kicked out.
She had called me and let me know that she was homeless. She was 14. And I have no legal right to drive up and pick her up. She's not my child according to the courts.
They came to pick me up, my stepdad and my mom, and basically told me that if I wanted to live in that house and have a happy family, I needed to cut ties with my real father. The family kind of changed after that. Things were different. People weren't really acknowledging me. People were treating me poorly. I felt like I was the enemy in my own house.